No libraries, no third-party scripts, just the almighty Intersection Observer. Before we begin, this video is sponsored by Linode. Now, Linode supplies servers that let you deploy apps, sites, and services that are both flexible and scalable. Linode's one-click apps make it easy to set up a web stack or a WordPress instance in under a minute. Simple pricing starting at $5 per month ensures there's no hidden fees or surprise bills. So sign up with the link below and use this code right here to receive a free $20 credit on your Linode account. Hey everyone, what's up? Gary Simon of CourseCetera.com. So today we're going to be covering something called the Intersection Observer. And this is because last week or 2 weeks ago, I did a video on something called bounds.js. And somebody mentioned, why don't you just teach the Intersection Observer and people could do it themselves without having to rely on a third-party script. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to check out the Intersection Observer and how we can use it to do things like adding styles or classes based on when your certain DOM elements come into view. And all of this stuff is quite customizable, so we'll be going over it. And yeah, make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get started. All right, so we're gonna get started here in our code editor. I have an empty folder open called Observe. So create your folder, open up Visual Studio Code in it. We're gonna create an index.html, as always. Emit abbreviation with the exclamation point to get some click boilerplate there. We're going to link our CSS folder, main.css file that doesn't yet exist. So let's go ahead and create that CSS folder and our main. We're going to use Sass here. So in order for this to work, you're going to have the live Sass compiler in order to click that Watch Sass button down there. And we will also Control B, right click, open with live server, and in order to launch that as well, you will need these two plugins right here, live Sass compiler and live server. So install those and just restart your Visual Studio Code and you can rock just like me. All right, so let's get started here. I did set up a Visual Studio Code kind of like mock-up for this. I did it beforehand, but I'm not going to show that part because this isn't necessarily a UI design tutorial. So we're just going to get started with the HTML first. All right, so let me close this too. So what we'll do is put in, we're going to have just an empty section right here. It's going to be 100% or 100 viewport heights for us to simulate, the scroll down. And then we'll put the next one in. And this one we'll give a class actually. We'll do class equals, I'm just going to call this content. And we're going to have two columns. So we're going to have a column left plus a column right. Inside the left column, we'll go ahead and have our images. So image source is going to be images / yellow.jpg. Alt can be yellow. And we're going to give it a class as well. We're just going to call this yellow. And also, we'll leave this off. I was going to add another animation class, but we'll do that in a bit here. We can also put in, let's copy that, Shift Alt and the down arrow. We're going to put in squiggly, squiggly.svg this time, and Alt squig, I guess we'll call, and class here is going to be squig as well. Yeah, and that looks pretty good. And then also between these, we're going to put a paragraph with the following type here. Oops. There we go. All right. And then this is also going to have a class. Oh, not yet. We'll do that after. All right, so we just have to get these images in here. I'm going to make this available on Codepen, so check the YouTube description if you want access to the files or whatever. You can use whatever you want, of course. All right, and here's the images folder. All it is just this SVG file here and yellow.jpg. All right, so this came from, I believe, the Photo Splash plugin in Adobe XD. Okay, so let's continue on here. So what we're going to do is just get it styled up initially with our Sass. All right, so I'm going to be pasting a lot of these in, and I'll describe what's happening as we go along. So first of all, setting the height to 100 viewport heights, margin 0, just to set that to 0, and then nothing else too exciting. Our section, we have a width of 80%. I'm not making this responsive. It's unnecessary. We don't want this to be too long. We're going to center it up and then give it as well a height as 100 viewport height. So that way we don't see anything initially when we look at it on here. So as you can see, we scroll down, then we see this stuff here. All right, so after that, we'll have our content, and our content, as you can see, we have a section class of content. So we'll have content here, and we'll put in display grid, and then grid template. Sorry, columns is going to be 70% for that first column, and then auto, or the remaining percentage for the right column. All right, then we have a left. Inside of left, we're going to have position relative, text align center, display grid, and then place items center. That will place the child elements in here vertically centered and horizontally centered as well. And so if we look at this, we just have these three right here. All right, inside or outside of that, we're going to put in yellow. That's our image, by the way, so we're just going to make it 50%. And for now, we're going to leave this off, but we're going to uncomment this in a second. So let's check out what we have so far. Yeah, nothing too exciting. After that, we're going to have our paragraph. In fact, we can just do this right here. We nest that in there. Background white, and this is just styling that thing decently. So we're also going to make position absolute so it can sit on top of the image. Margin top is going to be around -25%. How do I know this? Because I experimented initially when I created it. Right, we're going to have 17%. Z index is going to be, we'll just set that at, I don't think we even have to set that. I don't know why I did that initially. Color black, padding is going to be 1 EM. Let's see, border radius is going to be 15 pixels. Width, we're going to be 20 viewport width, and then text align left. So let's check this out. Okay, I have no clue what I'm doing here, LOL. That's what that did. All right, and then next up, we're going to have our squig, which is position absolute. It's just a squiggly graphic design element, really. It was unnecessary, but I wanted to put it there. Left is going to be 19%, and width will be, we'll just do 8 viewport width. All right, there we go. Okay, so next up, we'll have our right. That's going to be display grid, place item center as well. I don't know what this is. A request has failed. Get out of there. And then also, we'll have our H2 element, which is color white. And font size is going to be 1.7 rem. We're just styling up the right column right now, which we cannot see. Hopefully I didn't screw something up. And our paragraph will be, looks like I did screw something up. Should be showing up by now. 1.6 EM. All right, so let's figure out what's happening there. Oh, because I didn't put anything in it. Sorry about that. H2 is get yellow. And then also, we have some lorem ipsum text. I have a specific amount, and I don't know what that number is, so I'm just going to paste this off screen there. So now let's check this out. Ooh, that is completely incorrect. Let's get that better situated here. I think I missed a couple properties. I know what I did. I missed an HTML element. Yeah, let's go ahead, go back here. We missed a class. We're just going to have a div. All right. And we're going to make it empty, but we're going to add a class later. But just watch. This single class is going to fix everything that you just saw. So if we save it, There we go. So this is what we're working with. This is the final layout of what it's going to basically animate to. All right, so let's get to that part, which is the meat and bones of this tutorial. Sorry, there's setup work. I like to show the process just so nothing is missed at all, and you kind of understand the full context of the situation. So now let's go do the JavaScript. All right, so let's create a script section down here. Did I just type script? Okay. All right, so first what we want to do is we want to select one of our elements that we want to display. And I'm going to do this with just one element at first, just to show you kind of like a beginner level understanding. And then we're going to make it apply on any number of these elements that we want it to by placing a class onto it. For now, we're just going to have one class that we add on to yellow right here, which is anim. This anim class, for short for animation, is not defined in our Sass or anything like that. It's just for us to be able to use a selector that we can apply to multiple elements. But for now, we're just doing one. All right, so we're going to call this const images. We're calling it images even though it's singular. We're only going to get one. Document.query selector. We want all. No, just query selector for now. And we're going to use all in a second, or in a few minutes rather. So we're going to get that anim class right here. After that, we have to create an instance of the IntersectionObserver. So that's what I was talking about at the in the intro of the video, and this is what allows you in like a native way, or in terms of without using any libraries, JavaScript libraries. This is how you do it by default. So we're going to call it observer, new intersection right there. And we're going to pass in entries and open this up in a function. So inside of here, we're going to, let's just console log entries. All right, and then this is the first step, is to create this intersection observer, but this does nothing. You have to call an observe method on the observer. So observer.observe. And what do we want to observe? Well, we want to observe one of these HTML elements. All right, so we'll say here, images. All right, so this intersections observer, by the way, I want to show you real quickly. This is the main API for it here. I'll try to remember to link this, but you can just type in intersection observer in Google and you'll find this, like it's like the first result. It does take a few options as shown right here. It accepts root margin, and threshold. So you can pass in these options after the callback that we just specified. And you can read up on what these do. It tells you, the root is the element that is used as a viewport for checking visibility of the target. By default, if you leave this out, it defaults to the browser viewport if it's not specified. Okay, the root margin and threshold, you guys can experiment with that as well. But basically, it will allow you to control when this thing fires, the intersection observer. By default, it's right when the element starts to come into view. All right, so let's make sure we save this. We'll go back to our browser and Control-Shift-I. Let's go to elements, no, console rather. Oh. Failed to execute observe on intersection. Oh yes, and I am an idiot. We need to move this into the class element. Oops. There we go. Sorry about that. Now it should work. Okay. So now right away we can see we saw it, but let's refresh this in the console here. Let's refresh, and we can see if we expand this, that we open up the first index here of 0, we could see it says is intersecting is false, and is visible is false as well. So again, we're going to get it no matter what. It's going to fire no matter what. But once we scroll down and it comes into view, and again, it's just the image that we're looking for at this point in time, we'll see is intersecting is now true. All right, so what we can do with that now is we can look for that specific property of is intersecting. So let's get rid of, well, we'll leave this open for now. So in here, what we can do is say if, let's see here, entries dot intersection ratio is 0, greater than 0 rather, then we can do something here. So what we can say is entry dot target dot style dot animation. All right, so this, if you were to look into entries, and if you were looking at the console log rather, you would find target and then style, and then we're just going to change the animation property here. So what we can say is, we'll do backtick here. We'll say anim1. That's going to be the animation name that we're going to set up in keyframes. We'll say for 2 seconds. For a delay, actually, we'll just leave that blank right there. Not the delay, rather, but the runtime. We'll just say 2 seconds, and then we'll say forwards and ease out. All right, and then we'll say else entries rather target.style.animation equals none. So what this basically means is, and the reason I put this in backticks is because in a second we're going to add in an actual variable, and you'll see why. But what's happening here is once it's in view, then we'll add this style, the CSS style, to that property. Otherwise, if it's not, or if the person scrolls back up, we'll remove it. A common thing you could do also is to apply a class to the class list, but I'm choosing just to adjust the style in this case. All right, so let's go ahead and save this, and nothing's going to happen because we haven't defined this anim1. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that right off the bat so we can actually see something work. And it's very simple. All I'm going to do is paste this in at the bottom. So we have our keyframes, anim1, from transform, translate y by a negative of 100 pixels. So we're going from this and opacity 0, and then 2, transform the original point, which is 0, and then opacity 1. Definitely check out my previous video I did last week where I went over CSS animation optimizations. You really only want to stick to, for the most part, these two right here because it's less intensive for the devices and such that have to display them. So save that, and let's go ahead here and refresh. All right, what's happening? Cannot read property style of undefined. Boy, this is not working out very well. Oh, I know why. We forgot to specify an array index. All right, so I'm just going to paste that in. We're going to remove this in a second because we're going to do it for multiple, but let's just add that in here real quick so this thing can work. All right, so you just saw it, but let's refresh, scroll down, and there it goes. Come back up, it removed it, and then it'll just keep on doing that. All right, very cool. So now let's make this work because obviously we want to animate multiple elements here, right? So let's go ahead and make this work. So the first thing we have to do is query selector all. That will select, you know, any number of or multiple elements that have the animation class on it. So let's add that to everything we want to add. Class equals anim and also anim here as well. And you know what? I think we're going to add it to our other, where is it at? Yes, this div right here is going to have a class of anim as well, just to take these two elements and animate them in. So we can save that, but it's not going to yet work. So we have our entries, and this time we have to wrap everything inside of a for each. So we take our entries, we say for each, we're going to pass entries, or entry rather, into here. So let's get rid of that. Close this. My family's being loud downstairs, very frustrating. All right, then let's just rename this. We got entries. What we'll say is, or if entry rather, intersection is 0, we'll say entry because we don't have to pass in the index anymore. Entry is the one that's currently selected. All right, right there. And then we'll say entry here, and that should be good. And then we have to watch all of the elements. This won't work right here. So we have to do images for each. Take our image and wrap this up. And then we just say image here. So now we're going to be watching all of those, anything that has the animation class on it. So let's save this and see what happens. Notice how they'll all come in with the same animation. It's not exactly, doesn't really make sense because you would just have like the whole section animating instead of taking all 4 of these. But if you wanted to animate differently somehow, like stagger in, I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so what we'll do is we're going to use data attributes, custom data attributes here. We're going to say data hyphen, and that's the convention. You always have to specify data hyphen for your custom attributes, and we'll call this delay. So this delay is going to be 0s for 0 seconds. That means we want this one to start immediately once that intersection observer fires. Let's copy this. We'll paste this in here. We'll say this one will be like 0.5 seconds, so half a second. And then over here, we'll say this one is around, 0.7. All right. So they come in pretty quickly, but not exactly at the same. It'll make the animation look a little bit more interesting. Down here, we'll say this one will be 1 second. All right. So in order to do this, we have to specify in the animation shorthand property the actual delay, and we can get that right here. So we can put in our $ squiggly entry.target.dataset.delay. All right, so dataset contains all of your custom attributes. You don't include data here, hyphen, it's just this name right here, and that's how you get this 0s value and 0.7s value and all that stuff. So we're just basically creating a variable that just goes right in here for the duration. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. That should be it though. Let's go ahead and check it out. Ooh, that didn't look correct. Yeah, there's something wrong. Oh, and I know why. It's because I remember when we were doing the CSS, we were talking about bringing certain things and hiding them. I'm not sure if I failed. Oh yeah, and also opacity 0. That's what we want to add right here. So they're all going to have opacity 0 by default. And now they come in like we want them to. So scroll down, and there we go. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did and learned something, make sure to subscribe and click the bell notification icon as well. All right, I'll see you guys real soon. Goodbye.